Welcome to the journey of an aesthete, a comprehensive examination of all things aesthetic, the arts, the humanities, and what it means to be human.
Yes, hello?
Is this Frank Cologne?
Yes.
Frank Cologne, it's Mitch Hampton from the podcast Journey of an Aesthete.
Hello, Mitch. How are you?
I'm happy that I've got you on our show. I'm excited about this episode.
Well, thank you for inviting me, really.
I mean, generally in these kind of shows, I do a little introduction. I won't go on for too long.
Okay.
Like to say the reason why you're on, I think, is because you contacted me, right? Because I left a message on a Tania Maria concert.
On my YouTube channel, right. That's right.
And I was very, of course, I love that concert and that music. And I've been a fan of hers for 30 years.
Wonderful. Me too.
I'm a pianist and composer, and she's one of my influences. And out of the blue, you thanked me for my comment, and I contacted you, and I said, you're a master percussionist, and you've been doing the art of percussion for some time now, a long time, and you're one of the greats. And I thought, why not have you on the show to talk about music and talk about, your career, and I thought this is a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be talking to you now, and you know what it was is for some reason a few of my messages on that YouTube channel had been overlooked, and as I was sifting through, I found yours. So I said, "Oh man, let me get back to this, man." Even though it's been a while, it had been a minute. I just reached out back to you since you took the time to to leave a comment, and it was a sweet one at that. So yeah, so that's how this all got rolling.
I mean, yeah, I love the comment because, first of all, the music is incredible. And, I don't know, I sort of, in a way, almost grew up listening to her and to Jorge Dalto and Willie Colon. And,
wow.
And
sure.
That's music that I really loved, and Airto. And I've discovered, just looking at your resume, that you play with everybody. You play with Harry Belafonte and Manhattan Transfer, and just such a diversity of musical styles. And
I've been around for a while, since the mid-'70s,
Yeah, and so I thought on our show, typically what we do is a personal bio or a linear chronology, and you talk about how you came to be this percussionist and how you learned all these instruments, and starting from the beginning, if you don't mind.
No, that sounds cool. It was a roundabout road, to put it mildly. I mean, run it down really quick. I was born in the States, but from my descent is Latin because my parents and everybody, behind them, my hierarchy is like from the Caribbean.
Yep.
I mean, my roots can be traced back to the Iberian Peninsula for sure.
Wow.
As well as Italy. Yeah. But, so here's the thing. After World War II, which my father participated in as a intelligence specialist based in Panama.
That's amazing.
After that, yeah, isn't it? I mean, those are other times,
Yeah.
After that, he got this grant from the U.S. government. I think it was called the GI Bill, where all the veterans could go and pursue further studies, university studies, and the government would, foot the bills. Mm-hmm. So my father took advantage of that, and instead of he went to Panama, Puerto Rico, and then Puerto Rico to the States, and he went to Washington D.C.
Wow!
And it was during this course of study that I happened to be born in the States. So it was just by sheer luck that I was born in the States. And then when he finishes his degree, he took the family back to Puerto Rico, and so I was raised on the island of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
So. Yeah, so there's where my heavy infusion of the Latin thing, it's right in the blood,
Yes, and that's why the music's so good. I mean, if you don't mind, when I edit the show, when we go to air, I'm going to open up with that cut of you and her trading, because that's an incredible on the song Uzina.
Oh, Uzina, yeah.
Uzina, and I'm going to because I think the audience and listener will hear. What you're doing with her is like any greatest bebop, just rhythmically, and you could talk a little bit about what that instrument is and everything if you want to, but I don't want to get too far ahead. But so you're at some point you got interested in percussion at some point in music, and I'm wondering.
Yeah, at some point, it's something that is almost like unexplainable because first of all, I'm, to my knowledge, and still today, like the first and only musician in my family,
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, everybody with some, Latin blood in them. I mean, everybody likes music and dances. I mean, everybody's got some sort of rhythm. I mean, but nobody really pursued it. Not even for fun, amateurishly, amateurishly. I mean, it's like, so nobody knows where this came from,
You're the
I'm like the first, and I would ask myself, well, maybe I was adopted or something, or maybe it was like, a product of 1950s experimentation with gene pools or something.
Sure.
But then again, the percussion was always. I always wanted to play drums. Here's the thing, I just always wanted to play drums, and when my ear turned towards the Latin thing, I was looking at Tito Puente and people like that, on television,
Oh, wow. So you were watching those artists, you had access to seeing their excellence on the TV. And you said, I want to do that. I want to be and do that.
Yeah. When I was a kid and coming up in Puerto Rico, at noon, there was this show that was called, it's like the noontime show, El Show del Mediodía,
Mm-hmm.
And within the show, it was like a variety thing, and it was basically like designed for people who were having lunch and watching TV, if you can picture this back in the mid-'60s,
Mm-hmm.
So, and they always had these bad cats on. I mean, they had like Ray Barreto's band, and Tito Puente was like a fixture, around this time. And there's another band called El Gran Combo de Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they were like, they were like in your face and, in your living room every day at noon, and you saw all this excellence and you saw them working out new things, and trying to
compositions, new material and.
Right there, and trying to launch new fads, in terms even like of clothing and dance, new dance crazes, and this is, like when Miriam Makeba came out with Pata Pata,
mm-hmm.
There was a version that came out in Puerto Rico, and there was a dance like immediately attached to it,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know, for like the rest of the year, people dance salsa in this way,
Interesting.
But then again, when I came home with the idea of becoming a drummer, acquiring knowledge in drums and percussion, I mean, See, my parents, they came from humble beginnings, and my father through federal grants from the United States government, as a veteran.
That's beautiful.
Managed to raise himself, in terms of education, and therefore in terms of his position in society and whatnot. And he encouraged my mother to go back to school.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and these were people who were aspiring to the better things in life, and to acquire a certain higher degree of culture, in their minds and in their concepts. So, my idea of becoming a drummer did not fly at home at all.
Oh yeah,
it was like, no way, we will not promote this. This is like a passing fad. It must be a passing fad for Frank. But on a deeper level, it was like, no, there's no way you're gonna start playing this savage kind of, marginal, kind of instruments. If you want to enrich your life with culture, well, why don't you play the violin? As a matter of fact, that's a great idea. You will play the violin. And I said, no, wait a minute. I want music, but it ain't about that.
Right.
Hold on a second. So we settled on piano, and my first musical lessons were basically classical piano. That was the compromise between us.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was my entry into music lessons, as per se, formal music lessons. But and my father, he watched over the hour a day that I I had to practice, because he was paying, I think it was $3.50 an hour at the time for a lesson. And these were lessons with the eminent classical music family of Puerto Rico. They're called the Figueroa family.
Oh
yeah. So fortune, right?
Study. Well, that's interesting because of course, as the piano is a percussion instrument, and I'm a pianist, and I studied piano, and I'm
right.
I was always I had a very strict Italian classical piano teacher in Florida. But we would trade records, and she would bring me opera, and I would bring her Oscar Peterson records, and
oh man,
and Cedar Walton, and she was saying, "What's this?"
Wow,
it was an interesting cultural exchange. But I think
who knows, if I would have had those kind of references, I might have become more enamored with the piano. See, but to me, it was like something in passing where I needed music, so I was willing to make a compromise. And after my hour was over, I could literally, close the piano cover and start experimenting with my hands on top of it, beating out rhythms. So, So, it was like...
I guess I'm interested in your musical development because the skill you have, well, first of all, the stylistic skill. So you were with Tania Maria's band when, in the 80s or for a period of time?
In the 80s, yeah.
Yes,
early 80s, man.
But it seems like at the same time you're doing Manhattan transfer gigs, which is, straight in, it's, hard swinging Basie, Count Basie charts, they did Corner Pocket,
That's right.
On the
That's right,
band.
yeah.
And I'm thinking you really got to know your stuff to, to cross from swing to even eighths to these styles. So I guess I'm wondering is how you develop that to that place from, after the piano and, getting those chops and those the development.
There's a few. The answer. That's a multiple question. Let's put it that way. So the answer has a few facets to it. But I do agree with you. I mean, with your observations. Tania Maria was like early 80s, and I was just coming off of sort of like a sour stab at Weather Report, Here's what happened. I had, before that, I had worked with Milton Nascimento.
You did?
And, I worked with Milton Nascimento.
I mean, to my way of thinking, if you working with Milton Nascimento, that means you already know music. That's music. I mean, already you're. But anyhow, didn't mean to. I just got excited there for a minute. Go ahead.
No, that's quite all right. I'm quite a fan. And it's funny because I'm quite a fan of most of the people I work with. And I guess it's a way of being. I guess I like the people. But I'm definitely a fan of Milton, and I caught him. as he was soaring in that golden age of his, you know, right off of Club de Esquina, and you know, and he had a tremendous band with him at the time that I was called. You know, I say at the time that I was past the wand. He had Nivaldo Ornelas on sax and flutes, and Robertinho Silva, who's my brother, and you know, from another mother. He's on drums, and Wagner Tiso was on keyboards and piano.
I was just gonna. You've also played with some of the best pianists. I was gonna say. Yes,
I have. Yeah, I've been blessed in that sense. You know.
I want you to talk. I want you to spend a little time talking about the great Jorge Douto, who left us too soon. But before we get to Jorge Douto, talk about Wagner Tiso, because he's a hell of a keyboard.
Wagner Tiso, yeah, he's a very, very interesting personality. That's right, out of Minas Gerais, and spent a part of his adolescence intertwined, you know, socially with Milton, as Milton was pursuing popular music, and you know, Milton became a pro by singing in dances, you know, as a crooner.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, and Wagner was very much into the classical music thing, but already infiltrating. He's like an avid student on a personal thing of Villa-Lobos. So, you know, he has dissected Villa-Lobos in and out. As a matter of fact, I did a tour with Wagner. Aside from Milton's thing, Wagner got this tour with the Brazilian government to celebrate 100 years of Villa-Lobos, and we toured all the Brazilian capitals, playing Wagner's renditions of Heitor Villa-Lobos' classics, and some stuff that a little bit more obscure that, you know, I wouldn't call them like the greatest hits, but, you know, in Wagner's rearrangements, man, they really swung, and they really, like, you know, they touch people in very deep and significant ways, you know. I mean, it was a beautiful project, at times with Nana Caymmi, you know, sitting in on vocals, you know. And with Victor Assis Brazil as well, you know, on piano in different cities. Yeah, so that was a sweet tour all over Brazil, all the main capitals.
Well,
Great.
I didn't want to get us too distracted, because we're going to talk about Weather Report, but I was thinking, if you're with Milton Nascimento, that's pretty good. So what was the thing? Were you supposed to replace?
Well,
come in and.
No, but here's the thing. I was with Weather Report. I was coming in for Rossi, and it was like a forced thing. You know, I had a friend relationship with Wayne. You know, and we were starting to chant together. You know,
that's beautiful.
He's like my sponsor. You know, in Buddhism and stuff. So, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm coming off of Milton. And I intersect with his wife, Ana Maria Shorter, in Portugal. And I'm sorry, hold on, let me just decline this thing.
Technology.
Okay, I'm back here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ana Maria sees Milton's show. And knows that Weather Report is looking to replace Rossi, and so she basically gave him a heads up. And then Wayne came down to see me working with Jimmy Smith down in southern, where was it? Some festival south of LA. So he came down. He saw the gig.
May I ask?
And then he asked me. He asked me if I had eyes. If I had eyes to join his band, you know, and I said, yeah, I definitely do.
So you were, you were
I'm sorry,
Jimmy Smith. I gotta hear about Jimmy Smith. Just anything about that gig or that. Wow, Jimmy Smith.
Jimmy Smith, one salty dude, man. But he's a salty guy, and you know, it wasn't a comfortable relationship. It never was.
Right.
You know, and me and my rock and roll hair, and he really didn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I'm good friends to this day with his nephew, is Tommy Campbell.
Oh yeah.
So we've done up-team tours all over the planet with different bands, including Manhattan Transfer and one of my other favorite bands, Ray Anderson and the Alligatory Band. Yeah, with Lou Soloff And yeah, so the I guess the hook was between Tommy and me, and then gigs open up and you get called on references and stuff, but they don't always work out. And that's the thing with Weather Report; it never really worked out,
Huh.
So Tania Maria had called me before.
Wow.
Actually, Wayne had called me, and then it was like right on top of the heels of that, Tania calls me, and he says, Frank, let's go out. And I said, man, it was like yesterday. I just talked to Wayne, and he wants me out there. And he said, okay, well, I know, I can understand. Yeah, you go do what you got to do, and what. Yeah. And a month later, I was talking to her, and I was like, hey, and she said, you ready? You want to go? And I said, yeah, sure, okay, let's go. We're leaving like next Monday, kind of thing. No rehearsal.
Interesting.
No rehearsal, no nothing, I stopped by her house, she said, bring a bongo, come by here, Come, like, hey, Frank, you home? Okay, pick up a bongo and come down, let's have some coffee down here, and
So you were playing duets with her. I guess she was playing piano and you were... Right.
That was my rehearsal. I was just having coffee with her and talking about the songs, and then she would, get up and play something.
Wow.
And we would do it, and then we're ready to go like 2 days later. And that playing relationship lasted 3-4 years or so. Yeah, one of the culminations of that was, I think, the video that you made reference to.
Yeah.
Where we were playing, which was done in Baden-Baden, Germany.
That's right.
And there's an album that's called The Real Tania Maria Wild.
I love that album.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was for Concord label, which is her label at that. Right?
True. Concord. That's right.
At the time, but that's a wonderful, wonderful album. So you're on that album, but I guess more generally, Tania Maria is someone who has her own unique style, her own sense of melody, her own. Just totally, wouldn't you say, a unique identity as a singer and a musician?
That's true.
And I think that's really something. Not everybody has that. And so,
man, Mitch, Tania is music. Man, she's a force of nature, man. Yeah. Let me tell you, Tania comes from Maranhão up there, up north in Brazil. I mean, way up there. Maranhão, the capital of Maranhão, San Luis, is an island to itself.
Interesting.
Right adjacent to the continent, and they're really steeped in tradition, and they look more towards Europe than anywhere else for influence and stuff. But she came from humble beginnings, so much so that her father, so much so that her father would take her down to bars at night, and he would bet. He would place an open bet on the bar. My daughter can play anything anybody comes up with.
Wow.
I take anybody on, and she'd have to deliver,
You mean so whatever things people would want to hear, songs or
whatever was on the radio, whatever the guy said, "Bah," then maybe today the father would lose the bet, but you can be sure that they would look up, and she would have to come back and play some Bach.
Wow.
And it was like, these are guys with machete under the table, play some bets on this little girl who's 8 years old.
That's right.
Right. So that's her intro to professional music.
Well, what can you say about her more generally as a musician and her songwriting? I mean, those songs they're deceptively simple, but yet they've got a lot of there's a lot going on in them, and you would just basically had to learn them, I guess, when you get to sort of on the road, right?
She during the period of time where we were together, it was like she was channeling music, and it would happen at home. We'd come off the road for a spell, and she'd come back out with some new stuff.
Yep.
And it was just like, wow, where'd this come from? Just, I don't know, I just started playing and I play every day, Zawano the same thing. I mean, Zawano made a point of playing, every afternoon and take every single note. He taped it. And then, he would like review and stuff, in the morning he would do his physical fitness things.
Yes.
And in the afternoon, that was dedicated to just like opening the channel and just slowing down. He had an assistant with reel-to-reel tapes.
I remember that. Actually, there's a wonderful. Have you seen that documentary on Zarwino? How his creative process in that time. I think when he's making. I think he's making the Sporting Life album, right? And he has a reel-to-reel.
Okay.
And it's sort of that documentary documents.
Yeah.
Well, it documents the very thing you're talking about. He's a very smart man because he knows he's got to get it recorded so he won't lose it, and that's
right.
He's got to do that. It's very intelligent.
Oh, he's very smart. Very smart. Yeah. He learned to box because Mile boxed.
Oh, interesting.
And so he scoped that out, and he said, there's some value in this too,
Mm-hmm.
And then he basically, he got good, and he kept it up throughout, his entire life, the rest of his life, and that kept him fit, that kept him strong, and that kept him mean, It kept him, authoritative,
Yeah.
There was the vibe in the band that, if it comes to this, I mean, if it comes to blows, I can deal,
Wow.
And so he had the lion's voice in the association,
Well, I'm wondering about a particular percussion instruments because there's that excerpt of Uzina, you playing some very interesting.
Are we talking about the Cuica?
Well, you may want to talk to the audience about some of these instruments only because the audience might not even know about them or what just a little bit. Because it's how you came to learn them and master them. I guess.
Wow. Life takes so many different interesting turns. I'm in Washington D.C. After being raised in Puerto Rico, I returned to Washington D.C. to go to American University to major in political science. I was deeply into every, politics and stuff. And I come from a family who was, into that as well. My uncle was he was a candidate for governor of Puerto Rico under the Authentic Sovereign Socialist Party.
Yes.
Which he created.
He founded.
And he founded that. Yeah. Him and a buddy of his, the Authentic Sovereign Socialist Party of Puerto Rico, right? For which he got his house machine guns more than once, and he had to. He was a lawyer and sort of like a Puerto Rican Jimmy Hoffa,
Yeah.
And
you yourself been involved in Puerto Rican independence and throughout your life? Is that an important?
During coming up in high school, I was, and I had this influence from my uncle. My father wasn't into this at all. I mean, my father was totally pro-America and everything, but at the time, youth is rebel as well, and most likely. So I entertained these ideas of socialism and studied it and stuff, and found out that hey, it doesn't really work, So as an adolescent, I definitely was involved in marches and and in the States as well, against Vietnam, and got tear gas in Washington, and our student body in D.C. in 1970. Yeah, the end of the war. Everybody was conscious, conscious and involved. So I was one of them for sure, and I sort of had the baggage, to know a little bit more about what we're really going for,
Yeah.
At least in principle and theory,
Well, if you want to talk about a particular instrument, so you made a video today that's beautiful about working with Airto, and you were talking about this instrument.
That instrument that I'm talking in that video is the berimbau. And
okay.
The berimbau, it's for people who are listening, it's like picture a primitive bow and arrow, and then basically you attach a gourd down close to the bottom. There's you leave about a foot before the bottom of the bow, and you attach a gourd to it where it bends the wire and therefore gives you a tone on top and the bottom. And you hold it in such a way so that you can actually beat the long part of the string or the wire, basically. Not basically, but yeah, it has to be a wire. And therefore extract the tone. And what you have is an amplification system with this hollowed out gourd that presses against your body. And as you move it back and forth, you can amplify it or muffle it and change the tone. And it's called the berimbau. Its origin is African.
That's right.
Its origin is African, but it was brought over to Brazil. And here it was really developed into an art and married with a martial art, a Brazilian martial art. It's called capoeira. And it happened in a very socially deliberate way because back when the imported black people were not free, they could not freely practice martial arts. So what they did was they married their martial art moves to the sound and the rhythms of the berimbau. And if you looked from afar, it looked like they were having like a social gathering and people were like dancing in the middle of a circle. But these cats were actually practicing their moves and or settling scores between themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then again, when the landowners, and the authorities got wind of what was going on, the art of capoeira was like, it was like illegal, and so was the instrument. And anybody caught like with an instrument, it's like what happens with nunchucks in New York City. If you have a nunchuck that is tied together, there's no excuse. You're under arrest. And in the sense of the berimbau, if you had a berimbau in your house hanging somewhere, and it's illegal. You're off to prison, off to shipped off to Trinidad Island, out in the middle of the South Atlantic.
Jeez. Everybody needs an anchor in life. You, me, just everybody. Anchor made this whole show possible. I'm immensely grateful to them. You too can use Anchor to make your own shows and create your own vision. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Well, that's really a drag. I mean, I sort of, but we're getting into your other career because you are a martial artist, right? Well, you became a
Yes, I am actually.
So
I became a martial artist, throughout my lifetime. I mean, I've done martial arts for 50 years. 50
years is a long time. Do you want to devote a little time here talking about how you got into that or became, was it through the percussion instruments, or was it?
Actually, no. I think, those early karate movies and Bruce Lee and all that, it just fired up the passion inside. And I always pursued it, in Puerto Rico. I was sort of like, I guess you could call me a little punk as well. So, I was scrappy and soon my parents and the school authorities thought it prudent to direct this into something more constructive, and something that could also afford me a little more discipline, So, so the Eastern martial arts, definitely, you get those qualities from that, from judo, from jiu-jitsu, and from karate. There's a reverence with, the master, and there's a reverence with the place of training, and there is a sense of discipline that is imposed and that one acquires, for one's own development. So, yeah, it did work, and it also helped me to fight better on the street, so. So, yeah, I was down with that,
Ask you how you negotiate doing the martial arts and the music career. It must have been somewhat fitting it all in there, your system that you developed to do that, to do both or to pursue both.
Well, I just I have this tendency of practicing everything that I learn every day.
I see.
Yeah, so it's not that I'm out on tour that I don't relate to martial arts anymore. I basically, I've incorporated into a daily thing where I just I just have a bunch of routines and rituals that I do on a daily basis, and basically that fuels my creativity and helps keep me solid, just as a person. So, martial arts is that. I mean, I became one of the pioneers in Krav Maga, the Israeli system of martial arts. It's pure self-defense. There's no Oriental morality about it at all. It was developed on the field of combat, and it's a very concise and very condensed system. It borrows from many other systems. It borrows from boxing. It borrows from it borrows from karate, and it borrows from taekwondo, and it borrows from jiu-jitsu, and it has arm locks from aikido, but it has a mindset that is very, very different from most everything Oriental. And it's the other way around. It's not a reaction kind of thing. It's a proactive system. Yeah.
Well, if that is your...
That's really not self-defense. It's an attack system to keep you safe. Yeah. Well, and then I'm deeply still in love with the total other side of the spectrum, which is Tai Chi Chuan.
Okay.
Which is the softest, the most gentle thing that you can practice and still be deadly with. And it's a moving meditation of sorts. And that's where I am with it now. In terms of fighting skill, I'm really not pursuing anything new. I maintain what I have from Krav Maga as a second-degree black belt, and I'm trying to get in deeper and deeper levels of Tai Chi Chuan as moving meditation.
So I guess what you're saying is that it's all united. It's all of it, being a musician and being.
I look at it as such. Yeah, I look at it as such.
It's united to.
I think
you're an athlete. I would say you're a martial artist and an athlete, as well as a musician, and it's all for you integrated. It sounds like.
Mitch, when younger, 25 years ago, I definitely viewed my percussion performance as an athlete would. I would warm up. I wouldn't eat before performance. I'd have all these things in. My day would be in function of that ultimate race at 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
kind of thing. And everything was, everything I did was in for that performance as an athlete. Now, I'm in a different phase of life now.
Interesting.
Composing a lot more.
That's good.
Yeah, I very much like working from my house on the Emerald Coast here, where I'm talking to you now. Looking out across the bay, I see the big island here. And I wake up to the birds in the morning and no traffic. So yeah, life has its phases, and But this is something we always, me and my wife always had this focus.
Beautiful.
At this point in our life, this is where we want to be.
Well,
it's so great that technology is now, providing this great opportunity for you and I to be talking.
It's beautiful.
Where you are, and I'm here in Brazil.
That's fantastic. I wanted to, on that related to that. I know that you talked about working with Airto. Now, Airto is the great drummers, percussionists of all time. Just really something. What comes to your mind about what inspired you actually getting to work with him, and what he taught you, or anything about music or life, or if you don't mind for just a minute before we get going to something else, because he.
My pleasure. Listen, Airto was a game changer. As soon as I really listened to what he was bringing in. Up until then, I had basically focused on Mongo Santa Maria. I wanted to play congas at the level of Mongo Santa Maria. So I was actually famous in Washington, D.C. As the guy who knew all of Mongo solos, note for note, on any single record that you might want to bring up. I had them all. I had the record collection at home, and I made it my mission, to transcribe and learn everything he did, note for note. When Ayrton came on, he showed me a whole different palette of colors, and he basically opened this other dimension, where it's not to say that anything was valid, but it just, the palette was so much richer, in terms of textures and temperature and color and, and all this way that you can enrich and also solidify the platform, very subtly and or overtly. It was like a whole different thing. It was a game changer. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I was lucky to be married to a Brazilian who also was connected to a whole bunch of musicians who were not only in Brazil, but also in New York and in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And it was through this network of connections that we finally got Ayrton and I got together, And I was a curious specimen to him because I was this guy coming from the Caribbean who already played Brazilian percussion, at a level to make his eyes open.
That's right.
And he was like, where is this coming from? I mean, they don't have this in Puerto Rico. Who'd you learn from? And to tell you the truth, I'm basically self-taught. I figured it out painstakingly on my own, and then as soon as I get to somebody who knew something, it reminds me of that old African saying, in the land of the blind, the guy with one eye is the king, of course.
That's true.
So as I would go to the Smithsonian and pour through microfilms for hours. I mean, until they kicked me out, and I would be back there the next day, just looking for archive recordings, of Brazil and Cuba, because I was deeply into looking into bata drumming as well.
Yes.
So, I was already going to the Library of Congress for my pre-law and political science stuff. So, I just branch out on my own hours and dig into this.
It's so amazing to me that you're studying pre-law political science, but you have this hunger, I would call it a calling, and you're studying this music, and you said, "This is what I want to do." And not only do you learn it, you learn every solo on Mongo Santa Maria. Then you get with the very best people, and you're working with Ayrton, and I think that's really quite extraordinary journey. I wanted to ask you a little bit about a great piano player, Jorge Dalto, who I think is underrated and undersung, and one of the greats. And I know that he was working a lot with George Benson, but when did you first play with him or get to be able to be on the stage with him?
We jammed in New York City at various places, including After Hours. And he had this band called the Inter-American Band.
That's right.
And it had Mario Rivera on saxophone, and I think it was Sal Cuevas on bass at times, or Lincoln Goines was just getting to New York, and I think he was also, he got a taste of that, and besides George Benson, he didn't really branch out into salsa, that much. It was like, Mario had this group called the Salsa Renegades.
Okay.
So, and they were like on the edge, on the periphery, because they didn't want to do anything commercial, and what they were doing wasn't really understood at the time,
Interesting.
Because they were stretching boundaries and stuff.
That's right.
And mixing elements, and but he brought this mastery of Argentinian, harmony and everything that. They were just swept everybody away. And he had this sense of beat also that was very ahead, very modern, and ahead. So the only project that we were actually pulled into again by Ayrton was that the Samba de Flora.
That's right.
That album, which was an offshoot of the Aquí Se Puede, which was being produced by Frank Ferrer from Puerto Rico. Being produced in Puerto Rico and Los Angeles. Yeah, so it was a shame. He was around for a short while.
Yeah.
And as you see, he definitely has still, he's left his mark.
Yeah, he did. It's one of the things I like about him is that I like him as a pianist, but I actually like the fact that he was unafraid to do popular things or to use popular elements. I appreciate that. He would actually put out albums that had kind of a commercial feeling about them, but they were good. What I mean is that the quality was on such a high level. And I think, I didn't know him, but it sounds like he was not afraid of any style. He would try anything. I feel like a little bit.
He was his own man, basically, yeah. Tito Puente admired him a lot, but they didn't always get along together personality-wise,
That's interesting.
Yeah. New York was such an interesting time there, but they had the soundscape, and there was like a New Rican village.
That's right.
And even SOBs, I mean, they had, with the exception of the weekends, during the week, there was some cutting-edge stuff happening there, And, very interesting times.
What about some of your projects involving more sort of very commercially successful groups and people? Because you've done a number of those. Like what comes to mind is Harry Belafonte.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if when you do a project like that, I guess I'm wondering. I take it that for you it's all music. It's all united. It's just a matter of what's required of the situation. But if we're mentioning,
that's true.
Mm-hmm, what is you?
That's true.
Yeah.
It's all music, and how would you say? Harry Belafonte is like a school that you go through. As you get at a certain level. Basically, you are then a candidate, and it's basically, it's like, is there an opening for the band? Because if you're at a certain level, it was sort of, you slid in there and did your time,
Mm-hmm.
There's even a site dedicated to the musicians of Harry Belafonte's band, and I think it's enormous. I don't know, it's like 300 people have been through, have performed with him at one point or another, and he's launched some careers, but I got called. It's interesting. I was referred to by Michael Wolff, who referred me to somebody else. Yeah, who then referred me to Harry. But that was the second time. The first time it was percussionist Steve Thornton. He tried to, because Harry was very partial to using two percussionists. He did so for.
Wasn't Mike Wolff Arsenio Hall's musical director? Am I right about that? For a period of time.
Yes, you're right. That's correct. Yeah.
And another great LA session musician, Mike Wolff. But you're doing stuff with him now. But anyhow, not to get. So you're saying it was a connection, I guess, through him. It was through Mike Wolff and through this person called John Cartwright. Mm-hmm. And John Cartwright operated for many, many, many years as a road manager, kind of personal assistant to Harry Belafonte. Mm-hmm. So it was basically a thing of, look, Harry's looking for a second percussionist. Can you do these dates? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact. Okay, so can you make this rehearsal? And, Harry just wants to see, he just wants you to, he wants you to work with, play with the band. And it's like, so I said, okay, you want me to audition? Fine, So I came in and, it was cool, it was like 1, 2, 3. Okay, fine. They gave me an itinerary. We settled on salary, and I was out with him for like 2 years. Wow.
But let me tell you a story. Back in 1978, here comes Stevie Thornton, a good friend of mine, great percussionist.
That's right.
And he said, man, hey, who was it? I think, I forgot the name. He just left, and I told Harry about you, and I had been in the city for like 2 years. I basically just strictly working with Julito Collazo in the underground Cuban folkloric circuit.
Interesting.
And that's what I moved to New York to do. And that's what I was doing. So it was a circuit that most of the Latin percussionists they froth at the mouth to be able to like go to the sessions.
Yeah.
You had to know where it was. It was like really secret kind of thing at the time. And unless you were taken by somebody who was already in that, it was like, it wasn't like an open thing. It wasn't a show. It was, we're dealing with people's spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this was like drummers would congregate, man, just to hear and see, this thing happening. And Julito had pulled me up to New York from Washington because I had been apprenticing with him for about a year or so.
Mm.
And he said, hey, man, you're ready to, at an entry level, you're ready. And I said, I'm ready to move. He says, well, listen, there's an apartment in my building. Should I talk to the super? And I said, yeah, talk to him. And that was on a Sunday. So, I had gone up to participate in one of these events. He called me up,
Mm-hmm.
So I drove up in the morning and I, came back down. So the next day he calls me and says, yeah, I got to the apartment. When are you moving? Mm-hmm. Well, that was on a Monday. I moved on Wednesday with my wife, my cat, and all my drums, everything we owned in a Carmen Gia. And we moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been just working with Julito for 2 years when this came up. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the audition.
Wow.
And this is 1978.
Yep.
And Harry, yes, that's cool, everything, And then what happened? I just did like a flip on the shekere, and it like startled him,
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell in his face that was it. He changed his demeanor and said, okay, well, we've had enough. Listen, okay, get your things ready. We're going to send you a ticket and get ready. We're leaving next week.
Wow.
I never heard from him. I never heard from him till 1980. What was it? 1997.
97.
Yeah, this happened in 1978.
So 78, you were almost going to have this gig, and then it came through only in 97. That's right. But it did happen. It just took a while. But what do you make of that time frame there? What's your What
I make of it is that I overplayed my audition.
Huh. Interesting.
At the last moment, I overplayed my audition, and he didn't go for it, and that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. While we're on the road, he was that kind of a thing. I mean, he was very detailed and, super pro, but he was like difficult. He was a very difficult personality. And, we were on the road somewhere out in Europe, and some company comes to me and they give me a pair of sticks, and the sticks are like luminescent, right? So the next day at sound check, I whip them out and we do one tune, okay, we finish the tune. But he immediately turns around and says, you, Frank, are you playing sticks with lights? And I said, yeah.
Okay.
And he says, don't. And he turns around.
Yep.
And that's it,
Yeah.
He was that kind of a personality.
Right.
And all the solos, it was like working he carried his band like it was a Broadway show. It was a theater company.
Right.
And as such, every single solo, every single guitar solo, every single keyboard, every single solo, whatever, is rehearsed to the max, and it must be performed. It must be performed note for note as it is approved.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, if you change a solo, you can be in Timbuktu performing. You change the notes of a solo, you can bet your bottom dollar. Next day, there will be a full company rehearsal, as a sound check, and then a full company rehearsal. And then you will do a show.
Yeah. Well,
that kind of thing.
Was that the case in 97 still? Is it kind of still the...
Yeah, actually it was. And sadly to say, I actually he and I had it out with the musicians union because I thought it was a bit of an abuse, to have sound checks over and over and over, which would last 2 hours. There were shows. It was like run through shows. And then, bite to eat and then do it again, Yeah. And this is every day on the road, every single day. So I found it abusive and actually called him on it. And I got fired for it. And, so.
Well, that's very interesting because I think, hearing this, I hear your birds are beautiful. I love where you were talking about the birds. I can hear them in the background there. Where you are, I can hear that you're in a beautiful place. I think part of it comes down to style, right? If you're doing a project that everything has to be composed, there's no improvisation, and it's very rigid. That's a certain kind of project, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is. Yeah. It's almost like, you're playing what the people are paying to hear. They want to hear that exact thing that they have on their record at home.
Yeah.
And Harry, in his case, he delivers. He does not decept. There's no deception as far as that.
Right.
He delivers. He gives them exactly what they want to hear. And then you have other jobs which are totally improvisational.
That's right.
And that's a whole different world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's differences. In a way, Harry Belafonte is a little bit like playing the violin, almost as if he was stuck with the violin. It's like being in a
classical music kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's come full circle in a way. You did a project that was similar to what your parents thought. I don't know. It's interesting how the journey of life and how musical and artistic style is always important. Is always central to what people are trying to do. So.
Yeah, they're different kind of artists, aren't there, Mitch? I mean, they're artists who are intent on destroying what they have created before because they just can't seem to look back. They have to compulsively be looking forward. And
That's
so,
right.
Gato Barbieri was one of those like that. Wayne Shorter is like that as well, And there are other people who are perfectionists to the point of, this is the way it has to be, and this is what the people like, and this is what I will give them. This is what you will play. This is what we all have to play here. This is it. And you get everything in between, man. Working with Ray Anderson and his band, Gregory Jones on bass, Lou Sola, Tommy Campbell on drums. And Jerome Harris, not on bass, on guitar.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting, yeah. And Ray would be writing new songs as we're taking the train from one city to another.
Yeah.
But and okay, guys, this is where we're playing tonight. And it was like, yeah, but it's a basic roadmap. Okay, so
right.
Do not play exactly as it is on the page. I mean,
right.
We're all together on this, and therefore it was totally open. It was like some great hooks, but in between, I mean, if you decide to go left, the band was there with you.
Left, right.
Yeah, everybody was there to support, and it was great. It was a great musical experience. Gato Barbieri was another, like, I guess, tradition terrorist or something, because have you seen that movie by Fernando Trueba called Calle 54? Calle 54.
I love that film.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you before we finished about that film because I know it would come up eventually. But
yeah. Well, it has to come up within talking about Gato. And here's the thing. We are the band that took the less time to record their participation in that movie. We did strictly one take.
Wow.
Now, let me give you some inside scoop on this.
Yep.
Check this out. Gato, he calls us for a gig on such and such a date. He says, okay, where's it going to be? It's going to be on this street. It's going to be on Calle 54. That's all he says, and he packs his stuff and leaves.
Yeah.
Right? And is that okay? 54. What is there? Anybody know of a club there? No, there ain't nothing there. What are you talking about? Oh, there's the Sony studios there. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess that's it. So, we go and talk to the roadie and says, yeah, we're taking everything to the Sony studios. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so what's time? Okay, everybody meets. No rehearsal. What are we playing? We're coming off the road, right?
Right.
We're hot on performance repertoire.
Mm-hmm.
He calls a song that we haven't played, that I haven't played in maybe 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And nobody in this band configuration has ever played together.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no, we're going to play this right now. Okay. So Fernando Treva, the director, he says, okay, we're setting up lights and let's do a pass so we can, set the cameras. We do the pass. We come inside, listen, look. And Gato says, and then Fernando says, okay, let's go out and do it. We got everything set. Gato starts taking apart his saxophone and says, no, that's it. It's done. And he puts away his sax and walks out.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm glad you told that story because we're getting ready to conclude our show, and that's a great closer. I think I can't think of a better Gato Barbieri. A lot of people now you would say that people watching that movie wouldn't know that, right? They just enjoy.
I don't think they would know that because again, the caliber of the musicianship is superb.
That's right.
And like I said, we're coming off the road. We're fresh off the road, so we're all tuned into each other, and it works because of that. But Mark Soskin had never even heard about this song before, and he's on piano.
Mark Soskin was in that band.
Mark Soskin is in that configuration. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's right. Robbie Gonzalez on drums, Mario Rodriguez on bass, myself on percussion, and you got Gato in the front, man. Gato, man, he was amazing. It's just amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Frank,
Hey, man, Mitch.
Is there anything?
Mitch, I just wanted to thank you. For having me on your program.
Yes.
I was listening to some and reading a lot of your stuff over the weekend.
Oh,
and it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to say to the audience before we go, and about anything that comes to your mind, important to you?
Well, what's important is that artists continue to create, and no matter what's going on in the world or in society, that's our mission, to create and and to open the world's eyes to a different point of view. Mm-hmm. Within that thought, I have a recent project out, which is called Latin Lounge, and you can find that Latin Lounge on all digital platforms. And I'm soon to release some new music, so stay tuned.
Well, thank you. And I'll definitely get that Latin Lounge, and I hope the audience does as well. And thanks for being on our show, Frank.
Mitch, I'll send it to you. Send me an address, and I'll forward it to you. All right?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mitch. Take care now.
I don't like goodbyes, so I'll see you soon, folks. Thank you.